Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it's the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the M.O.A. broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, as usual, we've got nothing but the best lined up for you today. All kinds of good information, a great show. Let's jump in and get rock and rolling, right? Let's get to our show highlight. This is Season 2, Episode 8 of the M.O.A., the Make It Out Alive broadcast. Show highlights: bad women drivers, stereotype or fact, or both. We have out-of-control First Amendment auditors on a spree of terror, a bikini cliff rescue, a machete rampage in the Big Apple, and armed road rage in the Sunshine State. It's an action-packed show, folks. We got lined up for you today. All kinds of good info, so let's go ahead. Where are we going to start? There's this article. Hang on, let me get a quick sip here. My throat has been dry all day, been working in the shop. Okay, there's a story I've been following, and we'll get into the actual show here in just a minute, but this was just something on the side I was doing. Speaking of what is going through people's heads, like, have people completely lost the ability to number one, stop doing inappropriate things? But if you're going to have an inappropriate thought, don't say it into a hot mic that's being live streamed. Holy smokes. There is a story out of Washington County, Tennessee, and I'm sure a lot of you have already heard this story. A Tennessee County School Board voted unanimously Wednesday to censure a member. This is a school board member. From the look of this guy, he's probably in his late 40s to mid 50s. I don't know. But he's a full adult grown man, and he's a member of the school board of, I guess it's Washington County, Tennessee. And let me make sure we're going on that. Okay. They're having a school board meeting apparently, and they voted to unanimously censure this member who told a student, this is high school we're talking about here, not college. He said, "God, you're hot."
Freezing.
At a public board meeting last week, and I'm not laughing. I guess the laugh is just, I can't imagine in what universe you would think that's a good idea. It doesn't give her age. I don't know exactly. Not that matters, I suppose. But if you're a school board member, let me just read part of this. I was going to do this on a show later episode, but to me, I'm just laughing because I've been following the story, waiting for when this guy gets fired. Or resigns, whatever. I guess he's a school board member. He can't be fired. They can only censure him. He has to resign, and he's refusing to resign so far, which is, in my opinion, a bit of an odd look at this point. I would probably want to get as far away from that as possible, but I don't know. I haven't been in that situation. So they approved, the Washington County Board of Education approved the censure during an emergency meeting following public calls to remove board member Keith Irvin and Superintendent Jerry Boyd. I don't know what Jerry did. I think Keith is the one that made the comment. In a board meeting on April 2, which was live streamed, Irvin told a female high school student next to him, "God, you're hot. Do you know that? Where do you go to school at?" What in the world is going on? Now, how in the world can you have that guy around your kids now because of I guess I would think parents would be highly concerned. From what I read, there was a meeting after this to address the whole thing, and one father who had children in that school system or something got so upset that they wound up arresting him, and I guess the charges were later dropped. But can you blame him? What? I can't speak. I don't have kids, and I don't go to that school system, but I don't think I would want my kids around a school board, what is he, commissioner or member or whatever in the world, that said to a female student, "God, you're hot. Do you know that? Where do you go to school at?" I would imagine this guy is getting a lot more scrutiny than he would care to have at this moment, and deservedly so, in my opinion. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but that was just a story I was following. Let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming, and I'll try and keep you updated if and when there's a firing or a resignation on that, because I can't imagine how in the world you're going to continue to have something like that on a school board after saying something so publicly and was live streamed, I guess, to parents and other school board members. I don't know who else. It doesn't really say, and I haven't researched it very thoroughly yet, but for a couple of days there, it was all over the news cycle. So what an absolute dumpster fire to have going on there. And I wouldn't want that around any kids that I had if I had kids or my friends' kids. So we'll leave that at that. Now, I got a lot of hate mail from last episode regarding the quote-unquote sexist comments made about women's driving.
Look, I had to get it on, man. He was making a move. I had to get it on.
In the last episode, we talked about the female bus driver who was stopped so close to the tracks that she got clipped, I guess, by the train, and she got arrested. A whole bunch of charges on her. She's going to have a whole load of problems in her future, or right now. But guys, come on, let's just be honest here. Let's just take the emotions and the modern, hot button words and labels aside. Is it really sexist, though, or even a stereotype to say that women frequently aren't the best drivers? I think it's pretty universally accepted that women don't excel at driving. Not all of them, but in general, as a generality, I think it's safe to say that it's pretty universally accepted that women don't excel at driving. Okay, have you ever been around a group of men and they get into a vehicle and like, whew, oh my goodness, I feel so much better. There's a woman driver. I'll buy that for $1. Have you ever got into a car on a long road trip and be like, whew, we got a female driver. We're going to be safe. Now, if you have, that's great. And I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just simply trying to share the experiences that I've had around other men in my life for several decades now. Let's look at professional driving sports and other professions that require driving. How many female champions are there? I'll be honest, I don't know. I've only ever heard of one. I don't follow sports, in particular not the car and driving sports. I've only heard of one, and that's Danica Patrick, and she's notorious, from what I've read, from crashing her cars and not really winning that many races. Now, maybe I'm wrong. She might be a 35-time Gold Cup champion or whatever in the world they call it in NASCAR or whatever particular sport she was in, but I don't think that's the case. Every time I see a car crash pop up on TikTok or Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, they're constantly making Danica Patrick jokes, and I think she hasn't even been a professional driver for years. And I'm not saying she's not a good driver, but the bottom line is I don't think she ranked very high consistently amongst the men, and it's, when you get into a competition like that, the bottom line is it's going to, it doesn't care about quotas or DEI or whatever else. Whoever's going to win is going to be the winner. And so you typically see, a male-dominated presence in that situation. And I don't think she had a whole lot of big-time wins. Either way, what's the first thing that goes through your head, especially if you're a man? Because women tend to be more sympathetic. I get it. When you get into a car and it's being driven by a woman. I'm not going to run this on the ground, but, it is what it is. Now, I will say, let me be the first to say, there's a big difference between that and then having a bad or a dangerous male driver. There are tons, probably a great number, maybe the majority of accidents are caused by male drivers, particularly younger male drivers. The thing you got to understand, and I'm not going to sit here and lecture people. I'm just going to share my thoughts. It's my show. I get to talk about what I want, and it is what it is. But what you typically see with especially the young males that have a lot of accidents, it's not just a matter of skill, especially as you get older and they get more experience. It's not a matter of skill. Men are frequently much less averse to risk than women. And what that really boils down to, the bottom line is, men will typically be much more open to doing absolutely stupid things. I wouldn't want to ride with a 16 or a 20 or even a 25-year-old male any more than I would a female at any age. At that age, as a man or a young man or a male, whatever you want to call it, you are an absolute walking time bomb, a neutron bomb waiting to go off in any one of like 5 or 6 different areas. Okay. I would not at all want to be driven by a young male, especially if there are young women around, because that's one of the things that typically motivates these stupid decisions is to show off or impress someone. And it's usually a female. So no mercy for men there. But men typically are going to have better reflexes and coordination. You see this across all the top sports. And again, we're not going to make this into a women bashing thing, but to simply make the point, look at the women's soccer team. They notoriously, the U.S., I think they were Gold Cup winning soccer team, female, the women's team, they got beat by like a 15 and under boys high school or whatever that would be middle school soccer team. They got stomped on. And then I saw where they had a fully grown men's team. The women couldn't even like score one single goal. It was embarrassing. And of course, you're going to have a skill and a strength and a reflex gap and so forth, but these things are real. If you don't want to believe in them, that's fine. That's up to you. I'm going to leave it where it is. But that's what happens. The women, where the men, they go crazy because especially when they're young, they want to show off or they want to impress a girl or their buddies or whatever else. And they make stupid, poor risk assessment decisions and then follow through with them in a vehicle, usually at a very high rate of speed. The women are just typically not as good at drivers. They also frequently tend to overreact and way overcorrect when things go bad. Let's also not overlook the fact that they waste a lot of time screaming unnecessarily. If you look at these dash cam compilations like on YouTube or TikTok, holy smokes, 5 minutes before the accident starts happening, there's some woman somewhere screaming bloody murder while the accident is 300 to 400 meters ahead. So I'll leave that alone. Let's move on. It is what it is. You ride with whoever you want to ride with, and we support almost everyone here at the Make It Out Alive broadcast. Okay, First Amendment auditors. We've covered this a number of times on the show. I'm not going to go into what they are. I guess I will briefly. These people go around, they film situations because they have a constitutional right to do so here in the United States. Basically anything you can see in public, you can film, with very few exceptions. Okay, now I got a lot of messages, and I wouldn't say hate mail. It was really more constructive dialogue. But I had a number of conversations, both via email and messages through the different platforms and stuff that I have the M.O.A. broadcast out on, where people are like, I can't believe you support M.O.A. First Amendment auditors, and I can't believe you like that stuff and you're giving them publicity. And some people, the other side of the aisle, was like, I think it's great that we have these First Amendment auditors who have their, videotaping and capturing the actions, both good and bad, of cops and citizens and so forth. So let me be clear. When it comes to these First Amendment so-called auditors, in my opinion, there is a difference between people who are trying to go out there and aggressively instigate a situation up to and including violence, frequently along with pepper spray and police involvement and so forth, and someone who is peacefully exercising their rights. When it comes to peacefully exercising your rights, folks, you're not going to get me to talk out against that. I am a huge fan of freedom. If it was, in my opinion, I would be happy if the Constitution were even larger, simply meaning it limited to a further degree what the federal government could do to control and limit our rights and our freedoms. I love freedom, okay? And I'm a law-abiding person. I always have been and always will be. But there's a big difference between people that go out there and peacefully exercise their rights, even if I don't agree with someone's right or the way they exercise it. If it is their right and it's legal, that's their right, man. You have to draw a line where there's, okay, I'm not going to sit here and get involved and try and prevent someone from exercising their right, in my opinion. I may not want to be part of it, but I'm not going to try and infringe on someone's rights because freedom, in my opinion, is God-given. And that is a very sacred and big deal to me. So there's that. Now, what we have were these First Amendment auditors where they frequently tend to convene and to descend on and focus and concentrate is on policing. Folks, this is not a negative statement about law enforcement, but policing in America has a lot of problems right now. And every week, and almost basically every day, I read stories in preparation for the show and just out of, for my own education and so forth, and to keep abreast of current events, about completely out of control cops who are abusing people's rights up to and including physical beatings and false arrests and imprisonment. There was just one I read a couple of days ago. I think it was a week or two old at that point, out of Osceola, Arkansas. There was a police chief who allegedly slapped a man while he's sitting in a wheelchair. Now, we have to say allegedly because that's the way the system works in the United States and lawsuits and so forth. But from what I saw, there appears to be a reasonably clear video of this police chief slapping this man who's sitting in a wheelchair and saying something to the effect of, "You're not going to talk to law enforcement or to police officers like that." Now, whether that was the chief or not, I don't know, but somebody appeared to have slapped this dude across the face while this man is sitting in a wheelchair. And what happened out of it was the police chief, who was the one who was accused of doing this, he resigned less than 2 weeks after becoming the police chief in, I have the, let's see. Yeah, here we go. I had the article pulled up on my phone. Excuse me. Osceola, Arkansas Police Chief Robert Bobby Eflin resigned on April 8, 2026 after serving only 13 days following a viral video. The footage appeared to show him slapping and putting a man in a wheelchair into a headlock, allegedly. The Arkansas State Police subsequently declined to investigate the incident. Now, I'm not making about the whole thing about this story or that incident, but the bottom line is whether he did it or not, he resigned, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen next after being police chief for only 2 weeks or 13 days or whatever. We have a serious problem with policing here in the United States. We have a lot of officers, maybe not the majority, I'm not saying. There are I've encountered a large number of good officers in my lifetime. But we have some that are completely out of control, and they're taking it out on people. I read another article a couple of days ago where this poor lady was sitting in her apartment, and there was a raid. They had a warrant. They busted in her door in the middle of the night, and long story short, they ransacked the place. This lady is freaking out. She thought it was a burglar at first. Fortunately, she didn't grab her legally owned and registered firearm to defend herself, because moments later, the police came bursting through her door, and she was, the whole thing was a mess. And come to find out, the people or the person they were after had been taken into custody 2, 3, 4 weeks or something earlier and had never lived and apparently had no connection with this woman and her apartment in her life. So we don't know how in the world they arrived at her door at 2:30 or 3 in the morning, or whatever it was, busting the door in and executing this warrant. So we do have some problems. That's there's no getting around that. That being said, some of these quote unquote auditors are completely out of control too, and they're going around provoking people and hounding and harassing people in parking lots of stores and public property and federal buildings and so forth and elsewhere to capture confrontations that frequently end up in either violence or pepper spraying people. That seems to be the new craze, the new fad among these guys, these so-called First Amendment auditors, some of them anyway. They're going around and provoking people into physical confrontation so they can then pepper spray them. Now, I'll be honest, I think some of these events are staged. Okay, if you look at them, some of them just don't look right. I think some of these are staged to get views and clicks, because this is a very profitable thing for certain people on YouTube. Once you get a certain number of followers, and you've got YouTube and Facebook and other social media platforms, there you can make some decent money, depending on what your opinion of decent money is, by uploading these videos and these confrontations. Okay, but the problem is, in my mind, aside from what may be staged, is some of these are very real and people are being pepper sprayed. Now, they're allowing themselves to be goaded into it in some cases, and that's on them. But the bottom line is some people, they can't take much in the way of provocation. They're being, otherwise, normal law-abiding citizens are being goaded into doing something stupid, and they're getting pepper sprayed or beat down by some of these people who are called, quote unquote, First Amendment auditors. In my opinion, some of these situations are bordering on or even qualify as abuse of rights. Now, in the United States, what does abuse of rights mean? A basic definition of that refers to the malicious or bad faith exercise of a legal right to cause harm, often referred to as abuse of process, malicious prosecution, vexatious litigation, etc. It occurs when an individual uses a legal prerogative for an improper purpose rather than its intended function. This concept is often associated with the phrase, a right ends where abuse begins. And that's what happened. We're seeing some of these, in my opinion, less savory quote-unquote auditors going out there and provoking people, using a right they have to film people in public to provoke and get people upset who may not be fully aware of the legality of filming in public and the extent of their rights under the First Amendment and other amendments. They make a poor decision, and they allow themselves to get provoked, and then they act on it. They grab the person's camera or they push them out of the way or something, which is a poor decision. That's on them. But they're going out there to do that. And some of these guys I've seen them, they've pepper sprayed 5, 10, 15, 20 people in the course of the last couple of years. That's insane. Those are rates that would stack up against, some law enforcement officers in very active, violent areas. You should not, you should not be encountering that much conflict that requires pepper spray in your life if you're going around peacefully exercising your First Amendment rights, in my opinion. And I think it's going to be a matter of time before we start seeing some blowback. And just to be clear, no, I do not support that at all. These so-called, quote unquote auditors that go out there and try and affect change, by filing lawsuits and getting the police departments trained, and by actually, clearing up and cleaning up some of these poor practices that we see in both policing and on the street every day. And they do so with what I would call a sincere, spirit in what they're doing. I don't have a problem with that. But no, I do not support these ones that are provoking people at all, just to be clear. I also believe that eventually, sooner or later, it's going to backfire, and we're going to have results ranging from lawsuits to prosecution of some of these guys that are going around just wantonly, inciting violence, in my opinion, is what it looks like, to actually eroding the firmly established rights that we have already by abusing them, is the way it appears to me. So I guess we'll see how that plays out, but that's kind of where I stand on the whole thing. And I just wanted to clear that up because that every time I mention the First Amendment auditors, we get a lot of feedback and emails and messages and so forth, and that's what's going on there, in my opinion. Let's see, where are we at on time? Okay, we're doing good. Let me get a quick sip here, and then let's jump right back in. Okay, now we talked about this last week. The headline coming to us out of San Francisco, ABC 7, cruise rescue woman found clinging to cliff near San Francisco's Cliff House. San Francisco fire crew swiftly rescued a woman who was found clinging to the side of a cliff near the Cliff House on Wednesday. Sky 7 was over the entire rescue operation, and when they first arrived on scene, they spotted a woman in a bikini and no shoes about 70 feet down the cliff. Excuse me. Firefighters were able to first drop down a rescue cable for the woman to secure herself. They say she had been swimming before she got stuck. The current pulled her away, and she decided to climb up onto the rocks. One official said one firefighter then had to rappel down the cliff and strap a harness and a helmet onto the woman. It took a few moments to get moving, but the rescue crews were eventually able to walk the woman safely up the cliff. She was placed into an ambulance as firefighters evaluated her to determine if she needed to be taken to the hospital. It was not immediately known how the unidentified woman ended up clinging to the rocks by the Cliff House. Now, I read several different versions of this article and trying to gather more information and more perspectives. And that's what the M.O.A. broadcast is really all about. We sometimes get hung up in, other things and humor and whatever. But really the whole thing has been the Make It Out Alive broadcast. What can you take away from a lot of these situations, and what kind of survival skills, both modern and ancient and so forth? What is it that we can learn from this to be a better survivor ourselves? This woman apparently did a pretty good job from what I read. I guess she got pulled out by the current or the tide or whatever. Again, different articles had different things. But she apparently got pulled out and started to realize she was losing strength and couldn't make the swim or couldn't fight the tide any longer, or something to that effect. And so she decided to climb up the cliffs to at least get relief from the water because she was being drug out. If you've ever been caught in ocean tides, it is unbelievable. You can feel the power almost. I'll go over it briefly in the next article we have. But I was caught in a serious tide once, or current, while I was sea kayaking, and holy smoke, you can almost feel the power of that current while you're in that water. It is scary. The ocean is a very humbling experience. So anyway, we'll get to that in a minute, but she recognized how serious her situation was and she took action. And fortunately, she was fit enough to do it. She decided, I got to get out of the water. I'm not going to make it. I would rather take my chances waiting on the rocks for rescue to show up and be able to stand than keep trying to fight this, because the water will sap your energy so quickly. If you've never been, like I said, in ocean currents, you will feel it drain your energy. It is inexorable. Inexorable. You cannot beat it. You may be able to get around or survive, but you are not going to overpower the ocean. This lady recognized that. She got out. She climbed the rocks. Thank goodness she wasn't a body positivity influencer like we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Or she would have been trying to haul 400 pounds up a rock face.
I'll buy that for $1.
I don't care how much hate mail you send to info@gearconvoy.com. I'm never going to be convinced that it's okay to be 400 pounds at 5 feet tall, or any height probably, whether male or female. So body positivity influencers, I don't care. This lady was fit. She recognized the threat that she was facing and how serious it was. She had good situational awareness, and she removed herself from that threat and got out of the water and onto the rocks, and she was successfully rescued. I don't believe there were any serious or any injuries at all from what I read. Either way, we're glad that worked for her, and that's the way to do it. That's a good, positive story. It didn't end with her body being swept out to sea. And, this is the thing. We're going to talk a little bit more about situational awareness later on. But this is, many people today don't have situational awareness at all. And unlike a lot of other qualities, it can be improved. If you're stupid, you can't really make yourself a whole lot smarter. You can make yourself more educated, but if your brain just doesn't work really well, you're going to be stupid probably your whole life. And the tragedy is most stupid people don't realize that they're actually stupid. They think they're normal, and they think everyone around them is just as stupid as they are. And same thing with being oblivious. Now, you can work on being oblivious, but the bottom line is situational awareness is a characteristic or a quality or a trait that can be improved if you work on it. There was a guy just a couple of weeks ago. I was driving in a town, okay? And again, I mentioned many times I live in a mountain town in the middle of nowhere in southern Oregon at 4,200 feet in the hills. And I was driving into town, and there was a guy, his truck was broke down on the side of the road, and I guess he just needed gasoline because maybe it wasn't broke down, but he had a gas can. He had his truck parked. There was a easily sufficiently wide shoulder to park his truck on and get completely off the highway and across the white line to the right side of the white line. But his vehicle was right up and slightly over the white line into the lane, the traffic lane. And this is only on a 2-lane highway. There is no passing lane. There is no median. There's nothing. And he is walking probably a good 4 to 5 feet in the lane, carrying this gas can, completely oblivious or just not caring about all the traffic that is coming his way, thinking he's Moses, going to step right into the Red Sea and part it. And all I can think is, either some people are just absolutely that stupid, or they are completely oblivious to what is going on around them. And we're going to get into that again. I got to keep moving so we can get to it. But situational awareness can be improved. Now, we go to Marin County. I think we're in Tomales Bay, California. This story comes to us via ABC7 as well. And a woman dies after her kayak overturns. But there's a positive side, not a joke. The boyfriend and dog are rescued and survive despite high winds. So a woman died after her kayak overturned in Tomales Bay in Marin County over the weekend while her boyfriend and a dog were rescued, authorities said. A Sonoma County Sheriff's Office helicopter responded about 12 minutes after being requested. That's an excellent response time. I've had 911 calls go over 20 minutes to be responded to. And I know because I was listening to the scanner waiting to see. After being requested by the Marin County, and that's a helicopter, not a cop car or a sheriff's deputy. The Marin County Fire Department reports of 2 people in the water said. Okay, the crew found a man clinging to an overturned kayak and his dog amid high winds and 3-foot swells. Imagine being in the water. You're basically at shoulder or head height above the water, and there are 3-foot swells coming at you. That is not going to be fun. And it is not exactly warm out yet. This was, I think, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Suffering from cold exposure, he was lifted ashore using a 100-foot rescue line. He told rescuers his girlfriend had slipped out of her personal flotation device and sank into the water, prompting an aerial search. The helicopter crew later spotted the woman about 200 yards from the kayak face down and being carried by the outgoing tide. She was brought to shore where there were unsuccessful attempts to revive her. She was taken to a hospital where she was later pronounced dead. So this is not a sexist joke. This is simply statistically. I'm a very logical and data-oriented person. All I can say is, folks, the National Park Service rangers recovered the dog safely from the water, so we're happy for that, and the boyfriend or husband. Maybe women shouldn't be in kayaks in rough waters, and I don't mean that in a sexist way at all, but I have covered in the last 6 to 8 months at least 3 different stories where the man and or the dog or the pet have survived, but the woman has somehow died in a kayak death in the water. And I don't know if this is some kind of statistical anomaly. Again, we're not even making a joke here, not even a sexist joke. We're not going for the male humor thing. Women, don't go in kayaks in rough waters unless you are really, really prepared, because the dog and or husband / boyfriend, whatever, always seems to survive, but the woman never makes it out alive. I don't know what is going on there, but they do not seem to be very well suited for kayak duty. So, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just, seeing those numbers, if that had all been men, I would be very hesitant to go out into a kayak myself. I was on, so the story I was alluding to earlier, I was in a sea kayak once several years ago with my dad. And all of a sudden, a storm started to come up. And I don't know if you've ever experienced the power of the ocean, but we were trying to get back to shore to return our kayaks or to get out of the kayaks, get out of the ocean, because there was a storm. You could see the storm coming clear as day out in the ocean. It was coming, and all of a sudden you could just feel this friction of these currents that were just, you could not go in a straight line toward the beach. It was absolutely insane. And I was in very good condition at the time. And we had to wind up paddling as absolutely hard as we could for the better part of probably about 20, 25 minutes and going essentially parallel to the shore and slowly trying to drive and cut our way over towards the shore, because these currents just, you could not do it at a straight on a dead run. You couldn't do it. It would not let you do it. So, just if you take something away from these stories, forget the jokes and everything else. Be careful. The ocean currents, when they are active, are absolutely treacherous. They are perfidious, they are dangerous, and they are deadly. So be careful out there. Now, speaking of screaming unnecessarily, I can't believe where are we at on time here before I get too far into this. I know we got some other good stuff to get to. All right, we're going to go for it. We'll make this a slightly longer episode. I don't care. The insufferable Ronda Rousey is back. She has a new fight coming up with Gina Carano, so she's on TV or online promoting it and so forth. For those of you who don't know, Ronda Rousey was a female phenom a few years ago with female MMA, particularly in the UFC, okay, for mixed martial arts. And long story short, this gal was, to give her credit, man, she completely brought female MMA into the mainstream and probably brought a lot of viewers to MMA in general because of her popularity and her dominant wins over what were the best females at the time. The problem is she is such a pain to listen to. She would go on and on in these interviews about being able to beat up men, pro MMA fighters, and the best of the best, and she even didn't rule out beating the top heavyweight male champion at the time, saying nothing is impossible or words to that effect or whatever. And not that I think it's a sexist thing, but guys, men and women are built and made differently. In the end, you know who got her? It wasn't another man. 2 females stomped a mud hole in her back to back. I think it was who was the kickboxing girl who was also a boxer, very, very good professional. Holly Holm, a blonde gal, Holly Holm. And then there was another gal who was, she went on to become a big time champion. I can't think of her name. Goodness gracious. What is her name? It'll pop up in my head. Amanda something. Just beat the brakes off of her. It was bad. In the Holly Holm fight, she got roundly stomped for about 4. Amanda Nunes. There we go. No disrespect. In the Holly Holm fight, which was her first loss in some time or ever in female MMA, professional MMA, Holm just beat the brakes off her for several minutes straight, and then finally just KO'd her and just demolished her. And then when she came back to fight Nunes, who went on to be an extremely dominant female champion, you could tell she wasn't even in it. I think she got tapped out, TKO'd, whatever. They stopped the fight like 48 seconds in, or a minute 40. I don't know. It was the first round. And so, everybody thought that was the end of her. She was slated to be in the new Roadhouse remake movie, which I haven't even seen, but the clips I've seen, it looks absolutely horrendous. That role went on to The Loud Irishman instead. But it's so, and to be fair, it's not just Rousey, in my opinion. And that's what this show is about. It's my opinion. So if you don't like it, change your station, whatever. But practically all of these fighters now are so cringe when they're promoting their fights. I understand they need publicity. They got to sell the fight. But it is just so embarrassing for some of the ridiculously outsized and just over-the-top braggadocio and machismo that we see in promoting these fights. It's embarrassing, in my opinion, for anybody over 16 or 17 to be listening to and believing that stuff. Just my opinion. Some of it is pretty, it can be a little entertaining, but I couldn't sit there and listen to it for more than 5 or 10, maybe 20 seconds. And most of it is so bad that I can't even hear it at all. I just don't enjoy it. So anyway, I guess we'll see what happens, and we have the fight coming up. So there's your promotion. She gets her plug after all. Rousey versus Carano. I don't even know when it's coming up, but sometime soon. So we'll see what happens in that one. Now we go now to New York. This article comes to us via the New York Post. A machete-wielding nut in New York City Grand Central Station attack. It wrapped under the name Fox 5 and fixated on religion in his lyrics. Kind of a weird, disjointed headline, but whatever. So what happened? A machete-wielding nut who allegedly slashed 3 strap hangers. That is a subway rider, for those of you out of the NYC greater metropolitan tri-state area, and called himself Lucifer before police shot him dead at Grand Central Station, wrapped under the stage name Fox 5, and fixated on religion in his freestyle lyrics, the Post has learned. Anthony Griffin, 44 years of age, was even pictured posing with a broad-based knife. I've never heard a knife described in that way, but I guess they're talking about a broad-bladed knife or machete-type cutlery object, in a photo posted on his Instagram account about a year before the Saturday subway attack, with friends claiming he carried around the machete for protection and admitting he'd struggle with his mental health. I'm exhausted. The Messiah is tired, bro. I'm a baby, born again, but I'm only 43 and I'm tired, bro, he said to the camera in an April 2025 clip. I ain't been 33 in 9 years. What they did to Jesus at 33 since we're going to play numbers games. What happened at 33 for Jesus? I'll be honest, I have no idea what he's saying here, no disrespect, but apparently he's alleged to have struggled with his mental health, so I'm not surprised here. In another rap video posted in the same month, he claimed he was gonna live how I wanna, and even if I smell death around the corner, it's far from my persona. I'm the God. When it's time for revelation, that's the moment I'll be up. Satan never held me up. Father never held me back. Anyway, Griffin, a Bronx native who had at least 13 previous arrests, slashed and wounded 3 elderly victims, 2 men and a woman, when he went on a bloody rampage with a machete.
Anybody see Richie?
Day on the Uptown numbers 4, 5, and 6 subway platform around 9:50 a.m. April 11th, police said. He repeatedly claimed that he was Lucifer when 2 NYPD detectives who were working overtime to provide transit security confronted him and ordered him to drop the blade 20 times before fatally shooting him, Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch said. Members of the rap world said they were shocked, telling the NY Post that Griffin became well known for his music decades ago. Okay, let's move on. That guy had some serious problems. He's gone. He's paid for his sins now. It is what it is. But let's talk about situational awareness again. We don't have a ton of time, but we'll get into this here. What is situational awareness, both literally and practically? The literal definition of situational awareness, and we take away anything from the show, this is probably the key point to take away, especially if you don't know what this means already. Situational awareness is the ability to perceive, understand, and predict environmental elements and events. It involves knowing what is happening around you, comprehending its significance, and projecting future states to make informed decisions. This continuous process includes observing surroundings, communicating, and staying focused to enhance safety and prevent hazards. That is an excellent definition. This is a continuous thing. It's not something you do once and you're done for the day, or do once and you're done for the ride, or whatever else. This is a continuous thing. You're monitoring, assessing, and you're creating plans, backup plans, and thinking constantly about alternatives, in this process of being situationally aware. Now, what is a practical application? If you're on the subway, even if you're reading a book or listening to headphones, if you're situationally aware, you're going to be keeping an eye on who gets on and off the train. What do they look like? Who seems to be the biggest threat? Is there anything to be concerned or worried about? Having at least a basic self-defense plan in mind, even if it's in the back of your mind while you continue to read. You're aware of some certain steps that you're going to take to defend yourself or protect yourself and maybe even those around you, and also a clear path to an exit if necessary. Same thing as if you're driving a car, really. You're being aware of upcoming obstacles, upcoming road hazards, erratic drivers. What might they do? How if they swerve in front of me, what are you going to do? What would you do in a variety of hypothetical situations? You're basically keeping your mind active and aware of your surroundings and planning for how, even on a subconscious level, for how to deal with these hypothetical dangerous situations or encounters if one was to happen to you. And this is extremely important because we see today most people are walking around with their faces buried in their phones. They're talking on a phone. They're just staring off into nothing. They are the absolute opposite, the antipode of being situationally aware. They're not paying attention. You don't want to be that person. That's how you wind up getting chopped up with a machete in Grand Central Station in New York City. That's how you wind up. I saw one just a few hours before the show today. This guy who got ran off the road because he is sitting there driving as a dash cam. His kid in the next seat, his young daughter, is telling him, "Dad, Dad, Dad," and he's not paying attention. And this lady who fell asleep at the wheel ran into them, and they both wound up spinning out of control and going into a ditch and being ejected from the vehicle because he also wasn't wearing a seatbelt. So that's what situational awareness is all about, being constantly aware, constantly assessing, and constantly planning for what's going to happen in a given hypothetical situation that may become real. You never know. The life you save might be your own. All right, folks, it's time for the M.O.A. Chaos Report, where somebody's bad decisions give you a good laugh. Real news, real hard, real funny. Some elements modified for extra laughs. Okay, where are we at on time? Let's see. We're doing it. Let's close this down with a great story. Let me have a quick drink here to wet my whistle before we jump into a road rage action. Okay, we go to TamaracTalk.com. A Tamarack woman arrested for allegedly pulling a firearm on a driver trying to run her off the road. This comes to us out of Florida. A Tamarack woman was arrested after police say she pulled a firearm on a driver and attempted to run her off the road near the Florida Turnpike during a road rage incident.
Anybody seen Richie?
According to a Broward County Sheriff's Office arrest report, Diamond Tyrita Drisdom, 25, faces 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of battery stemming from an incident that occurred on April 13th, according to an arrest warrant. Records show the incident happened near the intersection of West Commercial Boulevard and the Florida Turnpike. Authorities say Tyrita Drisdom became enraged with another driver after being unable to pass due to traffic.
Look, I had to get it on, man. He was making a move. I had to get it on.
Deputies allege Drisdom repeatedly swerved her vehicle toward the victim's car, forcing the other driver to take evasive action. To avoid a crash during the confrontation, Drisdom is accused of pulling alongside the victim, lowering her window, and arguing while holding a small black handgun. Investigators say the firearm was visible in her hand, pointed upward with her finger on the trigger, causing the victim to fear she would be shot.
Do you see this?
This is a 9mm. I'm going to take this and shoot up your all day long. As the victim began recording the incident on a cell phone, deputies say Drisdom then threw water from a red plastic cup out of her window into the victim's vehicle.
You like that? There's plenty more of that where that came from.
The victim told police that while attempting to slow down and call 911 near the intersection of Rock Island Road and McNabb Road, Drisdom again swerved toward her vehicle, attempting to hit her.
This is crazy. She wouldn't stop.
Records show the victim later provided video evidence to police, including images of the suspect vehicle and license plate. License plate reader data also placed both vehicles side by side at the reported location around the time of the incident, corroborating the victim's account. Drisdom was taken into custody on April 20, and Tyrita remains in custody and was reported to the Broward County Main Jail. All right, folks, that's going to do it for today's show. Remember, don't wait until you have an emergency to prepare. If you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.